Hello, everybody. Welcome back at Rework It. Hi, Jesús.
Hey, Kladi, how's it going?
Pretty good, thank you.
Yeah, we see a lot of familiar faces in the chat. We have Sean, Baldir, Noor, Tim helping out as usual. How's it going, Tim? Good to see you. The Renaissance Tim Mobis, that is. Noor, Sean, again. Yeah, thank you so much. And we have Fery in the chat. Fery, we're going to be reworking your submission a little later on, but we're going to start with Kladi today, but before we start, I quickly want to talk about what Rework It is in case you're new to this stream. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you head over into behance.net/live, behance.net/live, and sign up with your Adobe ID so that we can see your comments. We cannot see your comments from YouTube, so make sure that you head over onto Behance. So I think that we can see my screen, Kladi?
Yes, we are on your screen.
We are in my screen. Great. So this is the website, iamkladi.com/reworkit, iamkladi.com/reworkit. From this website, you can submit your design by clicking on this button. All you need to do is enter your email, upload your Photoshop, Illustrator, or InDesign files. Give us your name, your Behance profile, because we want to feature you in the stream. Give us consent to use the work, and also let us know which apps you've used in your design. Also, let us know if you have any specific questions or comments, and then submit it to us. So make sure that you do that. We're going to be back again in 2 weeks doing more Rework It shows. So make sure that you submit your work, Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign files. I just wanted to get that out of the way now. And also want to take some time to say hi to the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. And Kladi, where are you watching from? Or not watching, but streaming from?
I'm watching and participating from Manchester, UK, where I'm based, and I'm here on this other side of the world. And I guess I would just say happy afternoon for those of you that are also joining from this side of the world, where for you, Jesús, and all the people joining from the western side is definitely a good morning, and for those in our eastern side, it's definitely a good evening already. But I can see familiar faces. Of course, our lovely team is in the chat sharing all the useful link. And yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing the form, Jesús. We are currently looking for new submissions. So I will strongly recommend, this is a critical time. The sooner you submit, the more chance that you have to have your work under our eyes, because we are literally looking for your work right now for our next episode. But yeah,
and actually, before we start,
sure.
I want to address one of the comments. Sean in the comment is saying, is this a Tim Say shirt? So this is an Adobe Sensei shirt. So yeah, this is literally what it means. This is Tim right here, all Tim, Adobe Sensei. He's just as smart as Adobe Sensei.
And yesterday, I don't know if it was during this stream or during the DCC, but someone was like, hey, Tim, did you have a break between this one and the other? And he was like, no, I was actually running the German Adobe Live. So like, Tim never take a break. He's like our angel.
He does 3 or 4 streams at a time. I wouldn't be surprised if he's also doing the Australia streams while he's doing this one.
Oh, that's super funny. Right, fantastic. Let me bring up our artist page, and here it is. I'm going to jump into my screen now. And as you can see, the name of this artist is called Sasi Kumar, a graphic designer from India. Now, the person that shared their work only put their name. Therefore, I apologize in advance if the work that I'm about to show is not exactly this person, but hey, I thought it was still worth it to give a shout out to these amazing people that shared their portfolio. I would strongly recommend, when you share your Behance profile, put a link there. So 100% is sure that you are the exact page that we're looking at, because with this name, there are many different designers, and I tried to look at the one that had the most similar look and feel, but it might be, especially if you use nicknames or shortened names, it might be that there are more profile with the same name. So in the form that Jesus has just shown to you, I will recommend to put the link so we can right away click on it and we know that that's gonna be you. But hopefully we're gonna have Sasi, which I believe is pronounced Sashi, in the chat, and I also emailed him, so hopefully we're gonna have a clarification. Otherwise, let's give it up to this Sasi Kumar, hopefully the right one, who has posted so many wonderful work here on Behance. And Rework It is all about the work that you guys do and post on Behance. So I'm more than happy to show as many profile as I can. Beautiful. So it's time to jump into Illustrator so we can actually see the artwork that I'm talking about. And the artwork is this panda. I'm a big lover of panda. I don't know. Let me know if in the chat, guys, if you have any particular animal that you are tight with. I was a big fan of ladybird since I was very, very young, or ladybug. I don't know. That's a British or American version. But there's been also a time in my life, which wasn't that far ago. I was actually more grown up when I fell in love with panda bear. So I was obsessed by black and white graphics and, of course, panda. And I even made like a cake that looked like a panda face because I was so into pandas. But yeah, put a panda in the chat if you know, a little panda emoji if you love panda as much as I do. Do you like pandas, Beresus?
Yeah, I do. I mean, anything that's cuddly. Well, I don't know if they're really cuddly in real life, but they look
they
cuddly.
They are. I think they're the most funny video of baby pandas running around and rolling around, and I think that's all they do. Like, I think it's one of the coolest job in ever, just to be able to feed and play with baby pandas.
There's that old viral video of that like the mama panda, the little baby panda, and the baby sneezes and the mama gets freaked out. Have you seen that? You guys know what I'm talking about?
I think that you should dig it out while I work, because I think it will be, because it's super short, so maybe we can share it real quick. Nor wants a T-Rex. There we go. That's some unique taste. Yeah, but let's put some panda face. I want to see a lot of pandas. Let's share love for Sashi Works and Panda. And I wanted to start to say that overall, I really think that Sashi's already done a good job. Probably, again, the only thing that I will have to complain, just because that's what I do, is on layers. We only have one layers, so it would have been nice to see the shadows into a separate layer. And let's start to rework it so I can actually you know, put some action in my words and we can start moving on into these rework it. But overall, what Frank has put there is like a horse.
Zebra or zebra, depending on what part of the world you're in.
Fery say that panda looks like a boss. I completely agree. So the question here with Sashi was how to edit it, how to give it a more iconic look, perhaps more minimal. I think it's done already a pretty good job in to keep it minimal, but we can definitely, you know, bring it a notch farther to make it even better. And let's start by, as Sus was saying yesterday, working with an organized layer is like cooking in a clean kitchen. So let's start by cleaning up our workspace by organizing the layers. And I'm going to bring up the layers panel. And I'm going to zoom in to show you what we're going to do here is to click on the plus icon in order to create a new layer. And I'm going to double click on it in order to give it a name. And I'm going to call it shadows. And then in the first one, I'm going to double click as well and call it main graphics. And then I'm going to create a new one as well, which I'm going to call outline. And I'm going to show you in a second what we're going to use that. Remember what we said yesterday, the order of the layer stack is very important, as the graphics that are contained in each layer stack will display above if the layer is placed on top of another layer, or below if the layer is below. But again, as we said, you can move the layers at any time, so that's something that you're always going to have control of. So don't worry, when you create a layer, you'll be able to just simply drag it underneath in just a second at any time. So you can save the file as many times as you want. You're still going to be able to modify and edit the structure of your layers. Right, so now we started to bring a little bit of organization here, and it looks like that everything is grouped. And once I click on the little panda, it looks like there is also some nostrils that we cannot really see, but the shapes are there. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to select the shape and use the shift up command G in order to ungroup. And then I'm going to go ahead and select the shadows and click on command C, which is control C on a Windows to copy them. Then head to the shadow layers and press Command F, Control F on a Mac in order to place them on top. And let's see what happened here. It looks like they were placed. I'm just gonna undo and perhaps head to my properties panel and see what was going on here. Because look what happened. When I moved it into a next layer, it looks like they lost their opacity. And that's the beauty of working with other people's work, because we never know. Oh, okay, so it looks like they were placed in between of the eye. Well, fantastic. That means that we're going to create another layer to honor this order that Sasi has created, and we're going to call it details. Usually when I proceed with creating illustration, it makes total sense that stuff like eyes, mouth, details, anything that it comes afterwards, besides the general outline of a shape in an illustration, is going to be added in a second stage. And by the way, today we're going to be also live with a creative challenge, and we're going to be creating an illustration with shapes. I'm going to probably give you a little bit of a sneaky peek before we say goodbye or before we start to work in Illustrator, but we're going to create an illustration with shapes. So we're going to tackle this idea from starting from the bigger shapes and then moving to the details. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to select the eye and the nose, and then again press Command C. We can then delete them. And it looks like we have missed a piece, but don't worry, we can come back for it. And we can hide the layer and now select anything else that it was left behind. And remember, in order to add more elements to one selection, all you have to do is to select the first element and then hold the shift key and then keep clicking on the other element while holding the shift key in order to add every single element that you click on into the same selection. Command C to copy them, and now we can head back into the details. Remember, you must have the visibility toggle activated on the layer in order to be able to place the file, because otherwise, not the file, sorry, to place the graphics in there, because otherwise if you do have, let's have a look, I'm gonna undo this so you can see. If I had my layers with the visibility toggled off and I'm trying to paste, Illustrator is telling me, hey, you're trying to place something in a layer that is not visible. Are you sure you want to do that? So that Illustrator is still going to give you a reminder, but you know, it's good that you build that habit in order to know that that's something that you will have to keep doing. And then I'm going to do the same with the shadows, press Command C, and then move them inside the shadow layer. So I feel we definitely have more control, and we definitely have also a darker set of shadows here, which we can perhaps place in the same shadow layer, but I like to keep stuff very organized. So I'll do another layer called darker shadows, and I'm gonna paste the graphics. Oops. So I'm gonna select first and copy, select Command C, Control C to copy, and then head to the layer and Command F to paste it in place. Oops. Let's see why this is not happening. Looks like I've created multiple copies of the shape. I was actually pasting it in the same layers. If something like that happens, like it was just happening to me, you also have the option of dragging the shapes inside the layer. So as you can see, the shape that you selected have this little square on the right side of the layer, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see it, and that indicates the layer that you have selected. And of course it's blue because the layer that we're working in is blue. So all I'm going to do is to select it and drag it inside my pink layer, and now it's pink. Fantastic. I'm going to toggle the visibility of the layer to make sure that there is no more shapes. Fantastic. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I really want to have control in all the different parts of the illustration. So as you can see, we have our details, and then we have our shadows, and then we have the lighter shadows, and then we have the rest of the image, which could perhaps be broken down in even more details. But look what happens here. Already by proceeding in splitting these different path, we already starting to spotting some issues here. So look at here, we have some residual shapes that we were not able to see before, which are not really useful for us. They were probably part of the constructions that happens when you merge a shape or use the pathfinder to unite different shapes. Sometimes you have little paths that are overlapping, and they leave you with this residual path that might cause problem in the future. And I was having a look at this file file, and I know that there are certain things also around the file that we're gonna spot. And it's pretty much what you guys were doing yesterday in Photoshop with applying a stroke to a general image. You're gonna start to see certain elements popping out of the blue, and there may be just some anchor points left behind. And that's why it's so beautiful to have control on your graphic, because just by doing that, you're gonna be able to really see and move around each single part. And I think is one of the most beautiful things to have cleaner files. I think that's what I've been striving on whenever I was starting to design myself. Having a file that is so easy to recognize and break apart, and I think is one of the biggest achievement as a designer. So something else that we'll do here, perhaps, look at that. If I zoom in, I can already start to see that there are some issues here into the shape. So again, the illustration is very well done and is absolutely a beautiful work. But when you work with other professional, you really want to make sure that all these sort of little issues are taken care of. Because, for example, for something that we're going to be creating here, like creating an outline, these might cause issues in the future. So you want to make sure that you avoid, see, we have a residual of a shape here that it was simply sitting there, and by creating the different layers, we were able to deconstruct our file and really notice if anything wasn't in its own place. Like the here looks like it's not perfectly sitting on the head, and because we have control on a different part of the layers, now we know that if there are certain parts that don't need to be there, we can simply move it around. Look at that. The more I move things around, the more I'm spotting little bits of little parts that don't belong into the illustration, that again, they might have been just left over from the original way in which it's created the shape, which is again completely fine. There is not a problem. It does happen that you might lose some shapes. It happens to everybody, but you really want to be mindful in the way in which you then organize your file, so you can have control over each one of these elements in order to make sure that your file is on point. And before we move forward, so we have organized and cleaned up and removed any possible errors that we're seeing so far. The other thing that really comes to my eyes is the fact that Sasi was heading for, and I just want to make sure that Sasi, I wanted to make sure that I was pronouncing the right name, wanted to go for a minimal look. And there is nothing more confusing and far away than a minimal look than mixing styles. I mean, if that's your goal and you want to create a multi-layered file or artwork, absolutely, not a problem. Creativity has no limits. But if you're aiming for a minimalistic look, something that really jumps to my eyes is the fact that here for the neck of the panda, we have a gradient. So we have actually used two different techniques for creating shades. So the first shadows on the top, as you can see, are created by path. They're shapes of a different colors. And in this case, for the neck, we have a gradient. So in this case, that will be a very big no-no for me. So what I will do here is simply press the eyedropper tool and select the main color of the neck. And then I'm gonna go ahead and select the little side, how you call it, the neck of a shirt, the folded neck of a shirt, and the tie. And I'm gonna move them into the details layer, because as we know, this is the layers that sits on top. So we wanna make sure that everything that we do just stays on top. It's everything that we do underneath stays underneath, and we have the shirt and the little tie sitting on top. And the beauty of working with layer is that now that I know that those elements are sits on top, I can just hide them or just simply lock them, and I will be able to operate into the shadows layer and create some shapes with the shadow. And it looks like I'm gonna work on top, but in reality, they're gonna be already in the right place under the shirt. So what I'm going to do is to press the pen tool, and I'm going to start to click and drag, making sure that you are working on the shadows layer, so everything is going to be in the right place. And I'm going to start to just simply follow the shape of the neck and the shirt in order to create this shape on the side. So pretty much mimicking what Sasi was doing with a gradient, but staying consistent with the shape grading look that we've done here. And then with the eyedropper tool, I go ahead and select the same color of the shadow. And again, consistently with the style, we want to make sure that we select the curvature pen tool, which is just below the pen tool, and we transform our sharp edges into curves. So what I've done here, I've simply brought in the little curve that I here. If you want to make a curve even more smooth or a path even smoother, you can access the smooth tool by clicking on the edit tool about 3 dots to reveal more tools, and then again from the flyout menu and select advanced. By doing so, you will reveal many more tools, and under the pencil tool, so click and hold to reveal the nested tool, you'll be able to see the smooth tool. And as you can see, in just one click over the path, I split my corner into anchor points, which allowed Illustrator to split the pointy corner into a lovely curve. Right, so all you gotta do now is simply to press Command C and Command F to create a copy and paste it on front. Remember, anytime that I'm saying Command, I'm working on a Mac, there will be Control if you're working on a Windows, so Control C and then Control F to paste in front. And afterward, we're gonna head to the Properties panel and click on the Flip Horizontal in order to flip our shape. Here it is. And if it's not working, you can also right click into the shape and then select Transform and Reflect and click on OK, and that will reflect your shape. So you can simply drag it and bring it on the other side. So look at that. We just created a little bit more of a consistent look. We still got his lovely face sticking out, but we don't have that contrast with the gradient. And again, because we've used shadow and everything as a shadow, we have this beautiful bright red color, which is flat. So how come that everything's got shadow, even the darkest color, but this bright red, it doesn't have any shadow? Well, real quick, all we have to do here is perhaps again, use the pen tool and then click once above. And by the way, before we keep going, I want to make sure that I'm actually working on my details layer so we can keep everything nice and organized. And we can start by clicking above our little tie, and then we're gonna move to the bottom. And what I'm gonna do here is simply create a shape that goes on top of my tie. Then press V to trigger the selection tool and hold Shift and click on the tie in order to select both the tie and the new shape that we have created. And then we're going to go ahead and select the shape builder tool, which we can find in our toolbar. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see the way that it looks like. It's got like almost the Creative Cloud logo, these two circles. And you can pretty much erase all this part that is outside by entering the erase mode of the shape builder tool simply by holding the option key, that's Alt on Windows, and click on the shape that you don't want to use. So just by doing so, we have used anything that it was inside and created a new shape, which we're gonna now create made darker. So now click on the shape that you have created and the additional shape that sits on top of our little tie. Press the letter I and click on the eyedropper tool. So we actually selected, we start from the base color, which is our red. Then from here, I'm going to head on the window panel and then select color guides. And color guides comes in so many different forms. You can find here different harmony rules of your colors. In this particular way, I'm going into, for this particular example, I'm going for a monochromatic look. And by doing so, Illustrator already creates a palette of tints of the different reds, which are going to be darker or lighter, which is perfect for shading because Illustrator already allows you to have access to all the tints of the color. And you can also add them to your swatches panel simply by selecting any of them and hold the Shift key to select all the color. So maybe you want to have different options of the dark, and then click on Save Color Group to Swatch panel. And if we go ahead now and head under Window and select our swatches panel, you can see that all the colors that we have selected are now available in our swatches. So we can close the color guide and we can have a play and see what is the best color, the best darker red that suits our illustration. The very last thing that I want to do here is to go back to the pen tool, curvature pen tool, and add a point because this line is quite straight. Like we say, we want to keep consistency. That's a key of creating a minimalistic look. Using a repetition in style, will allow you to deliver an image that is very coherent, very consistent, and the person that looks at it already knows what's coming. So if I see a shadow, the shadow comes with the curves, and you want to keep that consistent. And that's super easy to do with a curvature pen tool by clicking on the line and simply dragging in by creating a little bit of a curve. And you can add as many points as you want, just like so. So it's not perfectly straight. And maybe you can also move it a little bit from the top over here, maybe delete some of these points and add another curvature point. So we just bring in our little tie shadow in. Fantastic. Jesús, do I have one more minute to show something else, or?
Yeah, you have a couple more minutes. You have about 5.
Okay, fantastic. So what I can do here, and I was really, I really wanted to advise in order to really, you know, because that's me as a sticker. I really love this illustration. So to really bring up and spice up the work, first thing that I've done is selected the pixel of the little tie with the selection, with the direct selection tool, which is our white arrow, which I selected by pressing the letter A on my keyboard and then simply clicked and drag in order to select any anchor point that I want to modify. And if something like that happens, that means that I missed an anchor point. So I was pushing everything up when one got left below. Don't worry, you can press the letter P to activate the pen tool, go over it. And as you can see, a little minus sign will appear next to the P sign, which will allow you to erase that, that point. There's any fun jokes in the chat?
Yeah, well, we can tell that General Kenobi watches the pitch meetings on YouTube.
Yes. What's going on?
Well, he just made a cat. He just said a catchphrase from a YouTube channel that talks about movies.
Oh, that's super funny. Okay.
Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
There we go. So as you can see here, when we move outside of the white, we can also see if there is anything else that we want to fix in terms of our shapes. And now, before we are finished off with this lovely illustration, what I'll do, I'll click and drag to select the entire illustration, and I'm going to press Command C to create a copy of all the shapes, and then again Command F to create one single shape that now is placed in a layer, is flattened. And I'm going to head to the Pathfinder tool and click on Unite in order to create one single shape. So don't worry, the shape is still there. We just create a duplicate, which is unified. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I don't necessarily need a fill, but what I want here is to create a stroke. So I'm going to first apply a black stroke simply by heading to the properties panel and click on stroke and then set the color to black. And maybe we can give it a 2 millimeters weight, and we can also put it outside. So we're going to align it to the outside of the border, and always nice to put the corner and the caps to round. But the other beautiful things that we can do here is to head to the window menu and then bring up the appearance panel. From the appearance panel, we're going to be able to add multiple stroke to one image. So by clicking on the stroke icon, look at it at the bottom of the appearance panel, we can add a new stroke to the same image. So we got 2 strokes. And in this case, this stroke is going to be white, and it's going to be way larger than the other stroke. And exactly as we did in the layers panel, the order of this of your stroke, of your appearances matters. So you can drag the stroke underneath, below the previous one, oops, by doing so, or if that, here we go, it's happening right now. So you might want to click from the right side, because I was trying to drag it from the left side and it wasn't happening. And by doing so, we basically have 2 stroke. We can quickly toggle the visibility to see that there are both appearance to the same shapes, and it pretty much looks like a sticker. So it's ready to be sent to a printer, and I would love it to see it in the street. I think it's such a, you know, you can put it on packaging, you can put it on your computer, you can put it everywhere you want. But that's, I think, is a fantastic way to definitely give bring up a notch this lovely illustration. We have removed the gradient, we've organized our layer, and by doing so, we really was able to clean up the file. And I think that that's super cute. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you have any other questions. But otherwise, Jesus, I think it's time to jump into Photoshop.
Awesome. Yeah, fantastic work. There's a lot of people are saying that the bear, or Steve is saying that the bear looks pretty dapper. I concur. This bear looks like it could be in Pulp Fiction. I also agree with that, Golden Rose. So yeah, if you want to switch over to my screen, we can check out Fery Utomo's Behance profile so that we give him a quick little shout out before we get started. Let me know if you're on my
Yeah,
screen now.
absolutely. We're looking at Fery's.
Fantastic. So this is Fery's Behance profile. Fery is in the chat. So thanks so much, Fery, for submitting again. So make sure that you follow Fery if you haven't already. As you can see, he's quite active on Behance. He's from Indonesia, and he's a student, visual artist, and does digital imaging. Also, really quick, if you're just joining us, this is Rework It. Make sure that you submit your work so that we can review your Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign files. Make sure that you go into iamkladi.com/reworkit and click on this button to submit your work, and you can submit your files here. Again, iamkladi.com/reworkit if you want us to feature your work here on the show. So again, we're going to look at Fery's composite today, and this is it right here. He titled it Boat Because We Have, I'm assuming, a nice little boat. I'm guessing that that's why you named that piece Boat, Fery. So overall, like you submitted before, you're actually quite good at creating these check layers. So I'm not going to talk too much about that because we've discussed check layers in previous streams. If you're not familiar with what these are, you can check out the previous Rework It shows where I've talked a lot about them. But I want to address other issues that I see in this composite, Fery. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and drag down on the eye icons just to hide all the layers. So you can click and drag to enable or click and drag to disable the eye icons also. If you hold Alt on Windows option on the Mac and click on an eye icon, it disables all of them except the one that you selected. So I could have done that just to keep the background. So I usually don't like to have background layers that don't have anything, so I just delete them. There's no reason for those to be there. So a couple things. Number one, background. There it is. Looks fantastic. There's water, sky. Great. And you have a brightness layer, which brightens it up. No problem. And then you have this moon here. So now this is going to be an issue here because you also have another moon over here, which will be okay to have two moons. So I'm guessing that you have like a giant moon in the back and then like a tiny little baby one in front. Is that the idea? And if that's the idea, that's okay, no problem. But notice how this moon looks. See how we have like this really bright side on the right and then you can't really see the left hand side. This would also need to be true for this image. And you know, there's a lot of ways that you can achieve that. You can do like a gradient overlay, would probably be the easiest way. So you can double click to the side of the layer to bring up the layer style window, and you can just enable this, select something like radial. And I know this is not looking very good because I also need the black on the other side, like so. I'll reverse it. There's my highlight, you know, something like that. And to be frank with you, maybe not black, but you know, blue or something that looks similar to the color of the sky. But anyway, and also I realized that here you have some blending options, which is probably why it's not looking as good as I want it to look. So I would work a little bit on that as well. So the point is that you kind of have to match that other moon for it to look as realistic as possible. I do like that you are using the layer blending options to blend the image. I probably wouldn't do so much on the dark pixels. I'll probably do more on the brighter pixels so that I bring in the clouds and that sort of stuff. But then I don't want to lose too much of the actual moon. So you're gonna have to fine tune that accordingly. But the big takeaway here is that if you are gonna use this tiny little baby moon right here, then the bigger moon also has to match because it's the, you know, like the sun is still coming from that direction. So the sun in the background is coming from the right. So you gotta keep that in mind. So we can keep fine tuning the moon to make it look more realistic, or you can find a moon that already has like a brighter side. It doesn't matter which side, you can just flip it. But the point is that you need for that to match as well. Cool. So let me see what else you have here. You have these birds. I'm gonna come back to the birds later. But I really wanted to get to these pieces right here, these islands. So, oh, by the way, you call this one, this one's in the foreground. So like, again, keeping a clean kitchen, like if it's in the foreground, I would just move it all the way to the top because it just, you know, helps me visualize what, you know, how things are working a little bit better because that's like the closest thing to the viewer. So I would just keep it on top. Like I wouldn't keep it below anything else. That way, if I'm moving layers around, things will go behind it. Let me see where the other one is. You have another island in here. Where is it? Here we go. This one here. There it is. So very important. So you were trying to recreate a shallow depth of field because the foreground, you added and also name your layer. So I'll call this one back island. I don't know if it's an island, but we'll call it island. And this one is a front island all the way up here. Front. And the reason I'm doing this is so that I could easily select them by right-clicking on them when I have the move tool active, and I can select front island, or I can right-click and select back island. Super, super fast way to work. So if you zoom in, because I mean, remember the background image is setting everything. So notice how blurry you made the back island compared to the water that is sitting on. That wouldn't happen. It has to match the same blurriness. So to create that shallow depth of field, you would have to also blur the background or match the foreground to the background, either or, but it can't be, they can't be separate. You can't have an item that's out of focus sitting in a surface that is in focus. So you're gonna have to change that. So, and there's also more work we need to do here. So let me see, is this, yeah, this is the layer here. So I'm just gonna leave that for now. I'm not gonna change it because I also want to talk about something else. The masking here is not very good. Look at how blurry the edges are. Even if I take out the blur effect, notice your edges. See that? See how they're just not as clean as they could be? And this is actually a quite simple image to mask. If you double click on your smart object, Fery, you can see your masking. I'm not sure why you added these layers. I'm guessing these are highlights. Is that what you did here? Yeah, it looks like you added these highlight layers. That's cool. But the point is that the original image, I think you could have done a much better job in masking. As I said, the edges are too soft. So the way that I would have done this is by probably using a channel-based mask, just because we have a lot of contrast in the sky. So the way that you would do that is just go into the channels panel and just look for the channels got the most contrast between the foreground and background. In this case, probably the green channel. So you can duplicate that channel. You always want to duplicate the channel because if you adjust the actual channels themselves, you're going to change the color in the image, and you probably don't want to do that. So always work on a duplicate. And then from here, just make the foreground dark and everything else white. So you can go into image, adjustment levels. Actually, let me show you something else. You can go into image and apply image. And from here, you can select another channel or the same channel if you want, and then change the blending mode to multiply, and it'll create more contrast. See that before and after. And you can do that again if you want. Image, apply image, and there you go. So it's making the foreground really dark, and that's okay. And then with image adjustment levels, I can make the sky bright like so, and I can keep adjusting it so that, you know, I get all those trees and all those edges. And then you can just, you know, by hand, just come in here and just select these areas, and obviously spend more time on your image. I'm just going quickly here just for the sake of time, but you can see that I'm doing a fairly decent job. I'll fill with black. We'll call this good for now. And I'm going to invert it because in a layer mask, white reveals, black conceals. So this is the inversion. So we want the island to be white. So Control I, Command I on the Mac to invert. And then with black, I'm just going to paint on these edges here like so. And I'm giving myself a lot of room to work with. Notice that I'm not being so precise right now because I want to be able to make these adjustments in the actual composite. So I'll hold Control on Windows, Command on the Mac, click on the green copy thumbnail. It loads it as a selection. I can go back into the layers panel and create my layer mask. And then I can enable the highlight layers that you created. So now I'll close this and save it. And that's what it looks like. So now I can use the actual water that is found on this image to sort of match the scale of the other water. So like it's probably a little too low. So maybe I can move it up a little bit higher. And notice that this water looks about the same as the water there in terms of scale. And now at this point I can blur it. So I can go into filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And actually, you know what I'll do is I'll actually zoom in closer and then I'll blur. So maybe right out here, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I can blur it. It's way too much, obviously. So I can just start from 0.1 pixels and just start blurring it until the water here on the left, or until the water on the right matches the water on the left. So, you know, something like that. It might be a little too much. So we'll just leave it at maybe like 2.5. You can always fine tune it, of course, since you're working with a smart object. That was pretty smart. So now that I have that blur, that will look much better according to, you know, whatever the background is. So then I can just now create a layer mask and then just blend the two layers. And actually, you also had some adjustment layers here that I think help with the color. So let me just enable those. And I don't know, you actually added another highlight there, so that might be too much, but we'll work with what we have. So I can just start blending these in like so, so they look a little bit better. And I think your contrast may be a little too off. I think it's just a little too flat. So maybe I can just bring that over to the left a little bit. And also I just realized one thing. Remember over here in the moon, you see how you have your highlight coming from the right, so that the light is coming from the right hand side. In this image, it looks like the light is coming from the left. So, that may not necessarily be 100% realistic, but it is what it is. We'll work with what we have. And yeah, just keep fine tuning your image until it matches a little bit better. And I think that this does a much better job in getting the edges and it's the appropriate blur that matches. See that? See how it's really difficult to see where the new water starts or the composited water starts and the other one. And so that's what you want to do. You want to pay really close attention to the surface that you're placing your objects in to make sure that the right blurriness is there. And let me see if there's any questions in the chat. I really like how you make that selection with the channels layer. I have to do that more often. I'm actually publishing a tutorial on my YouTube channel on that same thing today. If you want to learn more about it, it should probably be up a couple hours after this stream.
Also, sorry, everyone is making comment about my keyboard. I'm actually, and I want to take this moment to say that I was sending a private message to Anne. And she said that she was having some issue with the file submission. So that's what I was like. I was really, really trying my best. So Anne, I was typing a message private for you in your Behance with an uploader link. So that will make it so much easier for you to submit your file. So that was it. You guys caught me.
No worries. So again, I'll select the move tool, right click and select the front island to select it right here on the layers panel. Again, this is why you need to have a clean kitchen so you can cook good food. I really like that analogy, so I'm going to start using it more often. But anyway, so the thing here is, I don't know, we have a layer mask there if it wasn't really hiding anything, but the same issue, right? Like look at your masking here. See how soft that is? See that? There's no need to have that mask be so soft, so I'll delete it. Again, you can use the same technique we used a moment ago. Look at how much contrast you have between the foreground and background. I mean, this is like the perfect situation. So you can just look through all the channels and probably the green channel. Yeah, probably the green channel's got the most contrast. Too noisy. I don't know if that, for some reason that bothers me. So I guess I'll use the blue channel, but I can go into image, apply image, and there you go. See, blue copy, it's applying itself to itself using the multiply blending mode. If I did screen, then it would do, it will make it brighter. And the different blending modes give you a different result. Look at if I go into hard mix, it really gives me like a strong result, but I don't want that because I lose a lot of the smaller detail. So multiply will probably be the best choice. And you know what? I'll do it one more time. Why not? And that's probably good. And then I can go into image, adjustment levels, and brighten the white pixels. So the white pixels are on the right hand side. So if I drag this slider, I make the brighter pixels brighter, like so. And then I can make the darker pixels darker, like so. And then with this one, adjust it accordingly. And you know what? I'll do that one more time because I see a lot of gray, light grays there, and I don't like that. So maybe something like this. And then for areas like this, you can just simply paint with black with the brush tool and just paint those in. You don't have to be so precise. And again, I with my masking, I'm very loose, as you can see, and I only make precise adjustments once I'm in the composite because sometimes you can't even see these minor imperfections once you place it over the background. Just like before, we need to make the actual island white and the background black, so we'll invert it. Control I on Windows, Command I on the Mac to invert, and I'll hold Control on Windows, Command on the Mac, and click on the blue copy thumbnail, channel thumbnail, to load it as a selection. Go back into the layers panel and create the layer mask and close the smart object. One good thing about what you're doing here, Fery, is you're working with fairly large images, so it's a little slower to render sometimes, but it's good because you get more detail. So see how there's much more detail on the edges now, and it doesn't look so blurry. So that's what you want. Also, one thing, if this element here is way too blurry because again, everything in this image is essentially in focus, like right in front of us. You can see the water here is like extremely in focus. It only starts getting blurry like back here. So this wouldn't be nearly as blurry. So what I can do, and you're using the blur gallery and that's fine. There's no problem with that. For something like this where I don't have to create like a gradual transition, I'll just use the Gaussian blur filter. I mean, it really does the same thing, but in my head, it just, I don't know, it just makes it a little bit better. So I wouldn't blur it too much. You don't want to go into like a really crazy blur like that. So maybe something like this where it's blurry, sure, but it's not like super blurry. So we'll just press OK for now. So it's somewhat blurry because it's close to us, but it's not crazy blurry like it was before. And I think that looks much, much better. I'm like, why are people giggling?
We're just having a little giggle because I muted myself because I was
Okay.
giggling so much and you were doing such a beautiful work. I didn't want to disturb.
So Bruce, is the question, do I find that when you say that, do you mean the channels based option? Is that, or method? Is that what you're asking about? So the question is, Jesus, you find that is the best way to select an image for detail? Curious. So I'll answer this very generally speaking. The best way of selecting something is to use a technique that is easier to select that particular thing. In this case, using the channel-based selection will give me the best result, but not a lot of work. I probably wouldn't do that if I was selecting, like, say, a car, because the select subject button will probably do a good, equally good job. So it all depends on what you're trying to select. If I was trying to select the sky, I could probably use the select sky feature and then start with that. So it really depends on the object you're trying to select and what the background is. In this case, we had a lot of little branches and trees and things like that on the edges, and using the channel-based method would give us a good result without too much work because we had a perfect, well, not a perfect, but close to perfect outline already. We just needed to increase the contrast a bit. So in this case, that was the best choice, but it's not always the best. Sometimes other methods would give you better results, but it just, again, it depends on what you have. And then it depends on what the background is. But generally speaking, if you're working on something like this, where there's a lot of contrast between the foreground and background, and just a lot of little detail, then this is probably one of the best ways. But I don't want to say definitely that it's the best way for everything. We don't have a lot of time, and I just want to enable some of these layers just so we can keep working on this. Let me see what else you have here, Fery. And also the lighting on this one. The lighting on this front island actually works compared based on the background that you have. So the only one that I would change probably, Fery, would be the background. This back one, if you want to be quote unquote realistic. Let me see. Let me enable more layers to see what's going on here. I know you have a boat in here somewhere. And this is another reason why, like, you want to be organized, because it makes things easier to find. So let's see. What is this? I'm not even sure what. Oh, this is, you created looks like a shadow there. I'm not really sure why, but that's fine. We can leave it there. Luminosity, is this for the background or for everything? Oh, I see what you were doing. Okay, cool. So it looks like I probably placed that foreground island. Okay, I see what you did. Okay, I think I might have messed up your layer order there, because you probably wanted that one like here
Fery
somewhere.
saying clue orange color.
Yeah, cool. Anyway, so I'm a little lost now in all these layers. I'm just trying to.
There is like an orange label.
I see where the boat is, but
Okay.
I think I might have turned on another layer that's like. Let's see. You know what? Let me just drag this over here and just see all your layers. All right, what do we have here? Yeah, this. Oh, okay, I see. I accidentally placed this island in a clip. I didn't want to do that. Cool. So now let me just enable all this stuff that you have here, Fery. What happened to the boat, and why isn't it showing? Oh, I must have turned it off. All right. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I think you did a good job on the boat. There's not much to change there.
And I'm so sorry. I just think that what just happened, it used to happen to me so many times, and it's good to just like iterate. Like, so you can have your layer visible, your group is visible, the visibility is toggled, but in reality, what is inside the group is not visible. So that can
Right,
happen.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, what Claudia is saying is that the group can be enabled, but then the content inside of it could be disabled. So yep, that can definitely happen. And that's one of the things that was happening to me now. Um, since I was messing around with the blurring and the island and all that, all your color matching no longer works, Ferry. So I apologize for that. But I think that the main point that I was trying to make was that um, it was about the blurring and the masking and all that. But obviously, you need to go in there and then now fine tune um, the color. So let me see if we can fix that. So let's see. Actually, it's one, you know what, since we don't have a lot of time, I'll leave the color because I've talked about color before. But the other thing that's really important that I should mention is with the front island, this one here, if you think about how like things work, things that are closer to you have more contrast than things that are further away. So like if you live somewhere where there's mountains or buildings and you look out and you look at the mountains and buildings that are far away, you're still going to be able to see the detail, but you'll see a lot less contrast. And then if you look at a building or something that's close to you, there's going to be more contrast because there's atmosphere between you and that faraway object. So this island here should have more contrast. So let me just add some more contrast. So I'll go into levels and then just add a little bit more contrast just to make it more realistic. I know the colors are not matching, but that's okay. Or, whoops, I went a little too far. Something like that. Just because there wouldn't be, it wouldn't be, the foreground will definitely have the same or more contrast than the foreground. And obviously I can color match this to the blue. Talking about atmosphere, what I probably would do is I don't really have a clouds brush, do I?
Yes,
I don't.
um, there is a cloud brush into the Kyle Webster. There is a fat cloud.
Yeah. So I just don't know if I have it installed, but we'll see. We'll see what I have. I think I have a clouds brush here in my libraries panel. Let me search my library because I'll just use one. What is this? I don't even know what these will look like, but let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay, there we go. I'm going to use a clouds brush because I also want to break apart the composite a little bit because I think that it might be nice to add just a little bit of like mist or fog. That's way too big, but
Oh,
way too big. Let me just make it a little smaller and maybe here like so. And then I'll probably blur it a little bit, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And I know like since we have no time, I'm like going super fast here, so I apologize. But maybe something like that. That's too much. So like I just want to barely get any detail in there and maybe even bring down the opacity just a tiny little bit. And I think you get the idea. What the point is this it'll be nice to create just some little mist or fog that's breaking up the foreground with the background. And I'm so unhappy with that that I'm just
and
gonna
I
do it.
think, sorry, so I think that something that is in there is that the horizon line is very dark. So you have a
Yeah,
very huge contrast between the sky and the sea. So maybe
yeah,
then.
yeah. That's why I'm trying to create like some mist or fog here to kind of alleviate that a little bit. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'll blur it even. Yeah, this is probably going to work better than that other clouds brush that I was trying to use. And then I can go into the opacity and just bring that down like so, and then just create a little bit of mist or fog or something like that. I think that might work better.
Super cool. I really love that idea. We have one more minute just to say goodbye, to remind everybody that we're going to be back here in a week. Ferry was loving the work. He said that he got a lot of hints. We were having a little giggle here, but I,
Actually, you know what? Sorry. Tim just gave me a great idea.
yeah, like 30 seconds, go.
30 seconds. All right. So another thing that you can do is I'll just do it in a new layer. And why isn't it working? Oh, because everything is off. All right. So new layer, Control Shift E, filter, um, filter gallery, and you can actually not filter gallery. I'm doing everything because I'm in a hurry. Camera raw filter. You can actually, there's the dehaze feature to remove haze, but if you bring it if you do the opposite, you'll actually add a little bit of haze. So maybe you could also use this feature to add haze into the image. So, and then obviously mask it accordingly when you're done. I didn't do it into a smart object. Otherwise, you'll have a layer mask underneath and you can mask it out. But that's another thing you can do.
That's a very fantastic tip. And I love the contribution with the chat. And also, as you showed us so many different ways to achieve it. I was really loving the clouds as well. Fantastic. So thank you so much, Michelle, Andrea, Sean, everybody. Jesus, can you jump on the website real quick if you have it there, please? In order to remind everybody that in order to submit your work, you have to head to iamkladi.com/rework it. In there, you're going to be able to find the button to submit your work. And all you have to do is to click on the form, submit your work, make sure that you place your Behance, your email, your name, so we can then getting back in touch with you. And if you have any issues with the actual final file, just submit a JPEG. We're going to come back to you with an uploader so you can place larger files in there. Unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye. Don't forget that we're going to be back at it. So please submit your work. And I'm actually probably have like 30 seconds. I like to keep my promises here. See if I can do that.
Less than 30 seconds.
Less than 30 seconds. Here we go. I just wanted to give a very quick preview for those of you that are here to the little image that we're going to be creating today during the Daily Creative Challenge. So I look forward to see you later on for the Creative Challenge. But thank you so much, Jesus. Thank you so much, everybody. And we'll catch you in a week time.
2 weeks. Bye.
2 weeks. Bye, everybody.